D'Angelo wants to say something to me here, so. Say that again, D'Angelo. Okay, okay, all right. I think I can remember that. All right. He's whispering something. He's saying, just if you can't make it out, what he's saying is, Michami dicadum. Michami dicadum. Listen. Michami dicadum. You heard it right on. Michami dicadum. Michami dicadum. Can you say it after me? Can you repeat after D'Angelo? Michami dicadum. Oh, you guys are good. Michami, everybody. Michami dicadum. Michami dicadum. Okay, so it turns out that D'Angelo here, just for a moment, I'll hand it back to you. D'Angelo, he's a Christian priest, monk, all right? But he likes all religions. He thinks all religions are important and have truth in them, all of them. So he got excited because he heard about these words, Michami dicadum. And Michami dicadum is from a religion called the Jain religion, not like Jane, your friend Jane at school, but Jain. It's a religion in India, and it's probably like one of the oldest religions in the world. It's so old, it's like it goes back before the pharaohs of Egypt. It's so old. It's about 5,000 years old. That's a really old religion. So he heard this. Michami dicadum. Michami dicadum. So it turns out that the Jain religion, we have Christmas in Christianity. They have this day when they all go around and say to each other, Michami dicadum. And what does it mean? In English, it means, if I hurt you, if I hurt your feelings, if I hurt you in any way, even if I didn't know that I hurt you, even if I didn't even know I was trying to hurt you. I didn't try to hurt you. I didn't mean to hurt you. Or if I did mean to hurt you and I hurt you, I apologize. I am very sorry. I want to make that right. So it's apologizing for any kind of hurt that you do to anybody or anything, because in the Jain religion, they don't want to hurt anybody. They really are working hard to not hurt people, to be nice to people and kind to people, even to animals and even to insects. Can you imagine that? They try really hard to not hurt insects. Isn't that something? And they're monks. Okay, so this guy's a monk, so the Christian monk. But they're monks, you know what they do? They have a little piece of cloth in front of their faces. You know why? Because maybe accidentally they might breathe in a bug and hurt it, kill it or something. So they cover their faces so that no bugs can get into, because they don't want to hurt the bugs. It's not because they don't want to have the bugs in their own mouths or their noses. It's because they don't want to hurt the bug. Now that's hardcore. That's like really caring a lot about not hurting people and things. So that's Michami dicadum. Let's say it all together. Michami dicadum. May we all take that kind of care with each other. Yeah. And if you need just listen to D'Angelo and he'll repeat it. So last week, Greg talked with us about apologies, yes? And the art of giving a good apology, the skill of that. And a corollary, of course, to apologies is forgiveness, asking for it and giving it, yes? So I thought we would take some time now to meditate on on this, on seeking forgiveness and doing forgiveness. A few years back at USC, when I was working there, I invited a guy named Fred Luskin to come down from Stanford. He runs the Stanford Forgiveness Project. And he wrote a book called Forgive for Good, about the art of forgiveness and the practice of forgiveness. And the central thesis of Fred's work is this: the reason we forgive people, other people, for the harm they do us is not for them. We don't forgive for their sake. We forgive for our own sake, right? We forgive them in order to cleanse, release, and restore our own souls, our own being, our own psyches. We do it for us. Now you say, well, that's kind of selfish. Well, yes and no, because if we do it for ourselves, then certainly that is going to affect other people, and that may include those whom we have forgiven. Yes, so it's not just about us to forgive for ourselves, to forgive other people for the sake of ourselves. It's good for our mental health, and Fred breaks that down. Research that he and his team have done about the positive health and mental health effects of forgiving others for the harm they have done us. So this is a practice for us to engage in, to do, yes, for ourselves. It's kind of, do you guys get this message on your computer all the time? It's like, too much data, right? Time for clean your Mac, turn that on. You know, time to clean up your desktop. You know, the computer slows down. There's just too much on there. Too many photos usually, right? Or videos. What else do you collect on your computer that's too much? Anything? Huh? Video games, yeah. After a while, you gotta like erase some of them so you can put new ones on, right? Well, forgiveness is like that too. If you're mad at people all the time, well, then that gets kind of fills up your head, doesn't it? And then there's no room for a good time, for having fun, for enjoying, for loving other people. We're so busy, we're so worked up about negative stuff. So it's like cleaning the hard drive. In a way, that's sort of what the practice of forgiveness can be. I don't know about you, but in the last 6 years or so, you're already nodding, right? You already know what I'm about to say. Maybe I don't need to say it. I'll just dance around it, okay? For the last 6 years, there's been a certain person on our minds a lot, okay? A lot. And it doesn't seem to be going away as far as the media barrage goes, right? And I've been thinking a lot about this lately, about what to do about that problem. All the psychic space that we have given over to this individual and filled up our heads with this person. And I think it's affected everyone, pretty much everybody, whether they didn't vote for the guy or not. It just fills up the space in our heads. I think it's time to clean the hard drive. Yes. It's time for some cleanup. It's time for forgiveness, not for the individual involved, not for the sake of this person, but for our own sake. Not only that, for the sake of our country. We need to forgive he who shall be remaining nameless today. Yes, we need to forgive this person. Now, that doesn't mean forget about what has happened or what has been done. No, it's not about forgiving is not about forgetting, right? We remember what happened, but we put that memory in a new place. It's reorganizing the story of our lives and the story of what happened. recasting the narrative. Forgiveness is about ceasing to be victims and becoming active players in our lives, not succumbing to victimization of others who have harmed us, but rewriting the story, reconfiguring the story, remembering what happened because you don't want it to repeat again, remembering so that we can avoid situations like that in the future. Forgiving does not mean that we move in again with the person that harmed us or be their best friends. You know, when Jesus said, love your enemies, that did not mean move in with them, right? It did not mean be their best pal. It did not mean go ahead and just carry on like nothing happened. But it does mean rewriting our stories in a way that lifts up our agency in life as opposed to being victims. Yes. And the gospel, this is the great power of the gospel story, of the Christian story. The Christian story is a template, right? It's a scaffold. It's a structure onto which, or it's like a projection screen. We got one here, right? The Christian gospel, the story of Jesus and the whole biblical story, is a projection screen on which we put our own stories and reorganize those stories to do what the gospel did for the story of Jesus. Because if you read we're about to go into Passion Week, right? Jesus shows up triumphantly on Palm Sunday as we celebrate it. A week later, things go south, right? And he is killed by the Roman Empire, right? Executed. Very bad, very, very bad. The Christian religion takes that story and turns it from a story of Jesus, the victim, to being the story of Jesus, the victor, right? Jesus, who rises above this anger and this hatred, literally in the mythical story of Passion Week, literally rises above it, yes? And is the victor. The cross, which is a symbol that the Romans wanted to use to scare people into submission, into obedience, the early Christians, with the gospel story, took the image of the cross and turned the meaning of it inside out and upside down. Yeah? Turned it inside out and upside down, said, oh, this symbol does not mean state terror. No, this symbol means salvation from that terror. This symbol means healing and reconciliation and life. Yes? It means it's life on the other side of death. Something we can all experience. It's our story. We're in it. We project each of us has a story. We project it on the gospel story. That's the screen, the scaffold on which we reorganize our stories. Forgiveness is part of that process. It is that process. This is, you know, the incredible story of Jesus is on the cross, right? And he says, Father, forgive them, these Roman soldiers. They don't, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. They know not what they do. So Jesus is forgiving the people who do this terrible thing to him as it's happening. Now, again, not to urge people to be the Roman army's best pals, right? No, not to be buddies necessarily with these folks that have done this terrible thing, but to recast the story of what is happening here away from victimhood and into being an action figure, right? You guys are into action. Who's your favorite action figures? Yeah. What? Zelda. Yeah. So you have favorite action figures, and they have powers, don't they? They're powerful. Action figures have powers. Yes. They're not victims. They're powerful. Well, that's what the Christian gospel invites us to be. Action figures. You, all of you. Action figure, right? Not victims, but people of action and power. That's where we get when we get to the place of forgiveness. More on this this whole topic of this person who shall not be named this morning. I've been thinking at a couple levels about this, and another aspect of it is that people did not vote for this man because of his positions on issues very much, right? Mostly the positions he had on issues were against the interests of the people who voted for him. Overwhelmingly, I would say. So this person who was not acting and not interested in their interests, really, acted against their economic and social interests, somehow got their vote. How? Because he became part of their identity as people. Yes? They identified themselves, their very being, with this man, with this person. And that's the basis of the loyalty. It's also why there's this loyalty and this identification that goes past any terrible thing that the man does or says. It doesn't matter, because it's his identity is their identity. It's part of their identity, who they are as people. And I don't think we're going anywhere in this country until we get that and recognize that and deal with it at that level, right? What we need to offer people who voted for this individual is a gentle, respectful way of changing their identities without knocking them over the head, because knocking them over the head is attacking their identity, which is attacking them, and that's not good, right? So somehow we have to use the power of love, and we have to be smart about persuasive language, and we have to shift that dynamic. Little teaser here, off subject of forgiveness completely. But I would say one way to do that is to put up the American flag in front of your house. Yeah, with whatever sign of politicians you're voting for, right? Because then what you're doing is you're creating cognitive dissonance with folks who identify that flag with this person and with that political orientation. You take that away, because the flag now belongs to everybody. You, them, all of us. And that is very powerful. I've been to women's marches over the last several years, and every time I observe the same thing: no flags. Hundreds of thousands of people in LA downtown. I was like the only guy with an American flag, and people would come up to, and of course I'm a white male. That didn't help either, hello, bad look, right? So people would scowl at me, and I'd say, hey, this flag is your flag. This flag stands for women's rights. This flag stands for women's reproductive rights. This is your flag, and I'm waving it for you, and I'm taking it back for you. And every time I have that little chat with folks, they kind of go, oh, you're right. Yes, yeah, it is our flag. Yes, it is what it means. But this is my point here is this is a very powerful thing to do in this context that we're in. Very powerful. The symbology, the messaging there is deep, right? And it challenges in a subtle, respectful, non-confrontational way. It kind of forces folks to rethink their identity, right? You know, what this identity means, and to realize and to begin to see that we're all in this together. We're all Americans, all of us. We're all patriots, right? We all care about the country. So that's how we change hearts, which then change minds, which then change votes, which then pushes the needle in a different direction. Then that's just one example of a way to do it, right? Same with being Christian, right? In this country, Christianity has become identified with this individual that we are not naming today. Yes. Even though the man has nothing to do with it, right? Imagine this person, former president of the United States, asking for forgiveness for anything. Not happening, not happening. That's kind of one of the fundamentals of this person, is that he does not ask for forgiveness. He does not make apologies. No sinner's prayer from this guy, right? Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy upon me, a sinner. You'll never hear those words from this person, ever, right? So reclaiming our Christian identity, right, as people who have a different point of view about this stuff, that is very powerful in terms of shifting the needle in this country and making things better. And cleaning the hard drive of our minds, which have been infected with this brain virus by this person, right? So we need to forgive him, and we need to forgive ourselves for letting this person into our brains, and we need to forgive people who supported him. We need to forgive for our own sake, for our country's sake, so that we can be power figures, right? We can be action figures, not victim figures, right? Change the narrative, following the example of the Christ. Amen.